was going in and out of focus.
It was.
Amy's
I thought it was part of the effects.
It's a new camera, sorry.
So that was Amy's tune, Fisher Tunts.
Wonderful.
Just to kick things off.
It was a hussicle.
A hussicle indeed. So what our brief today is basically to really try to delve in to accompaniment. This is the main topic. It's not all that we could cover if there is desires to look at individual things as well, but since the topic is accompaniment we shall do. So it'd be great to get an idea of what instruments people play. It's a big group. We're not going to be able to hear each other all the time, but we can't actually read the chat easily as we're going through. But do we have?
Well, we can read it right now.
Okay.
Right now, yeah.
I've got a clarinet here.
Quickly type it in.
Or you can go off mute and
Yeah, why don't we go one at a time? And I have a list of everyone here. We can do it like, I can just say your name and you can open up and just.
Yeah, that would be even better.
So we have Connie and Rachel in Toronto.
And accordion.
Connie's on accordion today.
No, mandolin.
Mandolin, yeah, mandolin. They play a million instruments each, but today mandolin and Rachel's on. Are you on bass today?
I play my fiddle too today.
She's gonna play her fiddle today. The other 18 instruments she plays not today. I guess me and Rachel have played together for years. So nothing. That's all I have to say. River Cash.
Guitar.
River Cash from Victoria, BC, and we have Alan and Ellen Rosenbluth from Toronto.
Alto sax, and I have to give a shout out for Greg's Hora, one of the most epic pieces. I love it. Just love it to pieces.
Oh,
You have to listen to it.
it's
Yes,
a Cosmos Spencer's piece.
we have a sheet with materials, and if you scroll, you'll see how you can download it's the Google Doc, so that has info about our albums if you'd like to listen to them.
Great. Beth Silver from Toronto, down the street.
Hi. Nice to see you. I'm doing cello.
Beth has been to Close Canada. She's in the Yiddish Glory Project.
We actually came to New Jersey about a year ago, and we met her.
Oh, great.
So yes.
Danica. Sorry, Danica, you're still muted. Or at least you're very quiet.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. Hi. I'm going to be playing fiddle.
Wonderful. Emily?
Hey, I'm playing trombone.
Emily's one of the founders of the Toronto Klezmer Society, so it's awesome to have her. Graham Campbell, and your hair looks great. Graham Campbell.
If you don't mind, can you put the link back in the chat for the folks who...
We'll arrive late. Sure, no problem. I'll just throw it at the bottom. Graham?
Hello, I play guitar.
Yep, that's an understatement.
I went to
Graham's amazing.
Graham Campbell spelled exactly like you spell it, and I was like, what's he doing here at my Klezmer workshop?
We have Max Forster, another inaugural member of the Toronto Klezmer Society.
Hey guys, I'm Max. I'm playing trumpet.
And Mel Korn. I haven't met Mel, but I will now. Mel.
There we go. I'm still muted.
No, we can hear you, Mel. Oh, now we
Can you hear me?
Yep.
The mute button there. It's weird. It's coming up and saying I'm muted. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I'm Mel, and play being the operative word, I play clarinet.
Wonderful. Micah, did I go with Micah yet? Micah. Is it Micha or Micah? Or neither?
Micha, but it's not important. Yeah. I play piano and guitar.
Thank you. Welcome. Quinn. Longtime member of Toronto Klezmer Society. And superstar Bernie meme creator. Depending in the house.
Clarinet.
Robert. You're still muted, buddy.
Yeah, I know. I know. My keyboard didn't work. So I play piano and clarinet. Sorry, and I used to play clarinet, accordion.
Sarah Lazarovic.
Hi, I play violin and a bit of piano.
Steve Rice.
Hey there, I'm playing accordion today, and I also play piano and aspire to play xylophone.
Nice. The mysterious T. I don't know who T is. T.
Hi. No, just because I'm on my iPad. Yeah. Hi. Yeah. Usually I have a tuba, but I'm sitting at a piano today.
T for tuba.
And also inaugural member of the Toronto Klezmer Society. T. Very.
I don't know why it's just showing up as that. It's kind of cool though.
So amazing. I mean,
I'm gonna change it because I can do that. I have the power to change it. Haha. And Uzi.
Representation from every instrument. This is
Uzi Smilovich. We last guy. Uzi. I think I've gone through everyone. Uzi's last. Oh, there's an Ian.
I play flute. Shalom Aleichem. Hi, everybody.
Flute, cello, and.
He plays flute.
Okay.
All right. Well,
wow, this is fantastic.
Anyone we missed?
And Laurie plays the drums, of course.
I play the drums, yeah. Today I'm on a ukulele.
Where are the Google Docs? Where's the Google Doc?
I've posted it in the chat.
Okay. Thank you.
So what you'll see is a bunch of PDFs. Which,
I can't scroll back. I can't.
There's PDFs which are by different instruments. So
there it is again.
There's concert charts, and then there's B flat, E flat, bass. So everyone should have something.
Now, one thing to say
Or
about...
we could just play by ear, that also works.
One thing to say about the instruments, obviously some of the instruments that people have mentioned, that people play, are sort of more obvious accompanying instruments, right? When you think of something like piano, guitar, accordion especially, you think, okay, yeah, natural accompaniment instruments. When you think of something like violin perhaps, or fiddle, you maybe don't think of it as an accompaniment instrument.
Or clarinet.
Or clarinet for that matter, but guess what? Any instrument can be an accompanying instrument. So yeah, a lot of the things that we're going to say hopefully have some universal applicability, but then we'll try to concentrate also from time to time on some things which are particular to individual instruments as well. So in some sense you can think of primarily accompanying instruments, and then you've got something like trombone or alto, tenor, saxophone, where you might think of those as sort of semi-accompaniment, and then you've got fiddle and other string instruments which do a great secunde, and then you've got even something like clarinet, which is normally a melodic instrument, can take on a sort of harmonic or accompaniment feel. So we'll try to just cover a grab bag of techniques today, some of which will be applicable to your instrument, some maybe not, but it actually sounds like a lot of you play more than one instrument anyway, so I think we should be covered with pretty much anything here.
And I think if we want to learn by ear during this class, and then you can go back and look at the documents afterwards, so just for the interest of time, there's plenty of resources that you can look at about different rhythms, different accompaniments, and such.
Yep. All right.
So we really have just two tunes that we want to focus on, and then we'll delve into. So the first one is called In Odesse, which is a Yiddish theater song. If anyone has heard of In Odesse.
I got it, Connie. I got it.
We'll play a bit of it, and then you can give us a wave or a thumbs up if you've heard it, and if you have not heard it, then.
So let's see, on the Google Doc, it starts off with actually Frege scale. So that, as you see, we've written the notes out for D Frege. It goes back up and back down, and it's got this interesting feature where if you go down below the first note, below the tonic, you actually have a slight difference with the B natural. So why do we look at scale here? Well, actually accompaniment is all about knowing your scales, your arpeggios, and your chords. So it's really those three things that are really important. The arpeggio and the chords come from the scale itself. So as we play it, just try to look at the notes, try to think about the scale that's being played here. And then also to orient yourself, and actually myself right now, what you see, we've put 4 clips, which you can look at your own time after the session, with just different versions of this.
I thought we could demonstrate.
Maybe we'll demonstrate some of it, but we're not going to play the clips now, right? But
No,
on the
we'll
other hand,
play it ourselves.
there's a link to the sheet music. There's also lyrics for this song, by the way, so we put those in as well. So there's quite a lot about In Odesse here. But if you look at the thing that says sheet music for In Odesse, there's a separate Google Drive that you should be able to access. And then in there, you want In Odesse, and we've got it in a few different keys. So we're going to look at the concert one. So I just want to make sure technically that everyone can actually access the sheet music within the Google Doc, within the Google Drive, in the key that you need it. Any difficulties there? You can chat with Laurie if there's some problem there. The other thing I should just say before we play it, for the moment we are going to simplify the A section a little bit and basically keep it all on D. It's got a lot of C minors that can sometimes be G minors. We're not trying to prescribe different harmonies here, but for the moment we'll keep it all on D until just before the first time ending, and we'll just play the rest of the piece as normal. So we're going to play it once down for you from this music here, and then we're going to delve in to some harmonic things and accompanying things that we're doing. So who has heard that before? If you have heard it before, thumbs up. If you have not heard it before, raise your hand. All right, so this is a new tune, yay! Well, definitely listen to the various recordings. It's super fun. There's a recording of Sasha Lurie and band, more modern one. Then there's Aaron Lebedeff singing it. It's about a guy kind of propositioning this lady to come with him to Odessa, where there's less rules and regulations and social, a little more loose social norms, and they can have lots of fun in Odessa. In Odessa, the rules are lesser. Anyway, let's sort of start with the A section, of course, and think about, okay, we've simplified it a lot to D until just that last C minor chord. What can we do with the accompaniment? Well, in the most basic sense, what I was playing right at the beginning on the piano was your standard umcha umcha. Okay, so it's this. And that's perfectly serviceable. It has analogs on all of the harmony instruments that I mentioned. Now, accordion, of course, is interesting. I do play a little bit of accordion, but very rarely in public, because I don't like to inflict my lack of skills. But the thing is, the inversions on the accordion are a little bit more limited if you're playing with the buttons. Now, of course, you can play also with the other hand, depending on whether it's a piano accordion or a button accordion. But one of the things that I like to do at first is just, if I'm going to mix it up a little bit, is to change the inversion. So the way that would look, what do I mean by inversion? Well, what I was playing here is a bass note on the 1 and the 5, the D and the A, but what I was playing is a first inversion chord in the right hand. So pretty simple, but I could change it to a second inversion chord. This, of course, can also be done pretty easily on the guitar. As I said, the accordion, you have to take some more liberties, perhaps, depending on the style of it. But in second inversion, if I just take that F sharp and put it up the top, I get this. So it's a slightly brighter sound than the first, right? It's very similar. It's just brighter because it's a little bit higher up, and it's just the texture of the chord. It's a very good idea to keep the melody in mind while you're doing this. If you think about the melody, if the melody is being played on a low instrument, or say when Amy was playing it down here, then maybe I don't want to get in her way with this, with the bright chord there. But when if she went up an octave, or if it was a clarinet coming playing up the octave, then yeah, maybe I want to be a bit brighter. So the first rule of thumb with the accompaniment part is to bear the melody in mind. What instrument is it being played on, or instruments? What octaves are they playing in? And are you going to get in the way? So, you know, that's really, it's a small thing, but the first time through I was playing more of the sort of register below middle C, whereas then when she went up, I was playing more in the register just above middle C. It makes a big difference. Also, one more thing about the inversions before we look at maybe the analog on the violin is you can switch it around. You don't have to wait till the next section to change inversion. So you could get... I was literally going first, second, root, second, first, second, root. That's a little bit busier in the accompaniment. Again, maybe save that for a louder repeat where you're trying to make more of a statement. You know, to me, it's understated to just sort of. It's understated, but if you wanted to be a little flashier in the accompaniment, make it sound a little busier, add some texture, flip the inversions around. So, okay, that's a sort of little comment there on inversions. Do you want to take a look at what the Secunde sort of sounds like? We'll talk about rhythms soon, but maybe just the actual notes.
Okay, so the notes of the, well, I'll do for fiddlers first. So we can play, for D, just play D plus A this way, or we can play D plus A this way. Or since it's D major, we can add the third. So we can do two notes at once, like, or you could go. So like Adrian said, it really depends who's playing the melody and in what range they are. So it's like there's an alto sax playing the melody. You may not want to play Secunde right here because you're like in the exact same note range. So you may want to even lay out at that point, or we can play a higher harmony.
So say I play the melody, we'll do it fairly slowly. Can you try a few different seconds? Oh. Okay.
So Adrian will play the melody on top.
And I'll play it up here. Okay, 1, 2, and go. So maybe unpack that a little slower, because you were playing actually a lot of different inversions. Yeah, that.
Right. So this.
So actually, if you're playing it on a clarinet or just a single note instrument, it's actually D, F sharp, A, F sharp, and then she's putting it, because the violin obviously can double stop, she's putting the A on top. So you get a fifth, a third, an octave. So always that dum bum 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 on the A for extra texture.
Amy, do you think you could move your hand over, yourself over, so there's a request to see your other hand?
Yeah, sorry. So I'm going. So I'm playing on the D and G string. And if you are a woodwind or brass, I mean, you don't always have to put the third because it does get very busy if you're always playing. But you can go.
So we get up to the rhythm.
Or you can also do the offbeat. So a great way to propel the music forward is to alternate the offbeat, and then you can hit the downbeat now and then. So that's a really Klez thing to do on any instrument. Right?
Yes.
Accompaniment or traditional melodic instrument. So let's try the B section. Do you want to play?
Yeah, well, let's try to do the same sort of principle again. We want to talk a bit more about rhythms. 1 second. Do you need something?
So, yes, we have this rhythm.
Before we even get up to the rhythms, maybe just demonstrate the different inversions on the B section and then the C section.
So we've got an A7 chord, which is just going to be some version of E plus A if you're a fiddle. Notice I'm not playing up here because that's just too high. It's going to interfere with the melody. Or, since it's a seventh, you could stick a G in there to be super fancy.
So actually, what we were talking about in terms of inversions, when you have chord changes, a general rule of thumb is that you should not keep the same inversion necessarily. You should try to select inversions of your chords. Again, if you have an instrument that supports this, you should select inversions that are close to each other. So if I think about the B section, the first chord is D. I've got 2 measures of D, and then I'm going to the A7. So if I'm starting off in that first inversion, so the first inversion chord. So what do I want to put for the A7? I probably want to go like this. So that's actually a third inversion of the A7. Of course, I could do a root position like this. So, bum, 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 maybe it's better if I get out of the way with the inversion 1 down. So it's a little bit better to play. Now, if you do play the piano or guitar, then it's really important to practice changing inversions if you want to be a top-notch accompanist. So what I mean by this is you take D major and you should be able to play, if not you have to practice this of course, but the exercise is to play the root position, then the first inversion, the second inversion, back to root. So,
and for melody,
well, I was going to say you want to get that into your fingers, and then for a 7th chord you've actually got 4 inversions. Practice to get the fingers in. You need to do it in both hands, especially actually in the right hand for accompanying. You really need to be able to have that sort of facility to change back and forth. So I really recommend doing that sort of exercise in your spare time. Just if you can't do it already, work your way up and down. The good news is you pretty much have to do it in D more than any other key to start with, because there's so many klezmer tunes in D. So D major and D minor, I can't recommend that enough. When you get that done, try G and C and other keys, but make sure that you can jump up and down.
Yes, and for
our... talk about the other instruments? Yeah.
Yes, for our trombone player, I don't know where you went.
Emily is our trombone player.
So if you know Dan Blacksburg, he's created this really cool course called Middle Voice Boot Camp. And we've got some of his sheets available for you. And he's gone through every single key in the cycle of fifths, going from like D, A, etc., playing like, and then going through all the different arpeggios, inversions, for like any possibility that you may come across in a klezmer chart.
I have a question. You know, sometimes in the A section, you have these long hauls of one chord that are sometimes the entire section. How do you keep that interesting? How do you keep such a long chord run interesting in the accompaniment section?
There's lots of different ways, and in some sense, we're trying to go through these various different things. But just to give you the spoiler, and we may not actually remember to do all of this in this order, but okay. So the first thing is inversions. Right, so in other words, if you change your inversions, then you can certainly make it more interesting. Right. A second thing is to change the rhythm. So we'll talk about that shortly. But how do you? What is the rhythmic feel that you use? A third thing you can do is to put in some sub melodies. So we'll talk about those as well. So they're sort of leading melodies. And then I would say, in general, you can try to change the texture as well. So you can, if you have multiple instruments in the band from that dimension, you can put instruments in and out if it's an extremely long section. So yeah, maybe even a fifth thing is to sort of double the melody in a thirds or sixths, but maybe not for the whole melody. So yeah, there's lots of different techniques, and in some sense that is the syllabus for today, is to look at all these different techniques.
I think trading instruments, and then within each instrument, for example, drums, you can take a section on the wood block, and that totally changes the whole texture of that section. So a lot of people might play the B section of this, and then the drum is just on wood block, so you can you have a lighter percussion sound, and then you're really hearing more of the rest of the instruments coming through there. So maybe trumpet will take one section, and then you just play with the instrumentation. Have mandolin be the accompaniment for a while. Maybe have the piano and the guitar cut out, and so you can. If you're playing the piece over and over again at a simcha for 20 repeats, then there's lots of possibilities.
Mind you, if you are playing for dancing, then probably the people aren't listening to the textures that closely. It would be more for the band not to get too bored. But for concertizing, it's a really good. will show now.
Well, why don't we have them play something so we...
Well, I thought maybe we'd just go through the rhythmic technique first, okay? So the first thing we sort of said was, well, what notes are you playing? But, you know, you're playing the chord, and you can change the inversion of the chord, but what about the rhythm? So already Amy was demonstrating some... Okay, sorry.
It's fine, it's fine.
He's going to knock down some stuff.
Good.
Yeah, 2 naughty cats. All right, so let's. The first rhythm was either or the offbeat or the downbeat. But what about in between? What else can you do? Let's hear a few different ideas.
Just playing very simple notes so that the rhythm comes through.
So that is the classic sort of klezmery, frailer sort of rhythm.
Bulgar.
It's a Bulgar more accurately. So 3 plus 3 plus 2. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. So if you think 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2.
And you can even do less. You can go.
Right, so that's a little different from umcha, 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 umcha. So actually they work really well together if you have multiple accompaniment. So I'll do the umcha, umcha.
I'll play it high like a clarinet.
Yeah, and why don't you do the 3, 3, 2? So. So I actually find myself quite often, even if there isn't another instrument playing, the harmonic part, I find myself, and I'm playing that umcha, you can actually put an accent to make it feel like that. And you could do this on any instrument, really. So instead of going, so think about where that ba, bum, ba, bum, ba, ba, bum, ba, bum, ba would come, and then play it like accented, like this. So I'm sort of going cha. The second cha is emphasized or louder, so that I can get that Bulgar feel to it. You would never do that in a polka. You know, if you're doing a polka, you want to make them as even as possible. But I find myself playing in a, in klezmer. So that's even something else I left off the list in a sense, is to change the accents. Even if you play the same notes at the same time, you can actually change the texture of the piece.
Right,
by
and
doing
with your
that.
bow or with your breath slash embouchure, you can be like. So yeah, you're playing more notes throughout, but you're only accenting some. And Steve had a question about, or talking about staccato versus legato, which is great. Like when you're leading into the downbeat, in this type of klezmer tune, or in most types, you kind of whoop. So you might be more bouncy, like more staccato on the first beat, and then on the final beat, da, 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 like carry that into the next beat.
So again, all of this has analogs, even if you're just playing a harmonic section on the clarinet, for example. It's hard to do. I know you play the clarinet, you're expecting to play the melody a lot, and when you're not, you're probably sitting out. And yet you can get a very effective sound if you throw in some of those little on the clarinet at parts. Again, you don't. If you're thinking about this in an ensemble, you probably don't want to have all the instruments playing all the time. All right, that's just even if you mix them up and switch the melody instrument to a harmony instrument, it really helps to have space at different parts of the piece and save the sort of full band all the time, depending on how many people you have, of course. If you've only got a duet, it's a little bit different. We have an 8-piece band, and I'll tell you, when everyone's playing, it's pretty loud and intense. So, you know, if you're sitting out sections for textural changes, great. Or if you are playing, make it really soft and unobtrusive. If you're not playing a big melody part, or you're in a big section, and then all hell breaks loose.
In our band, when it's all 8 of us, the 4 horns are trumpet, violin, clarinet, and alto sax. So it's very rare that 2 of those will play unison. Sometimes we do, and it's on purpose and it's for emphasis when there's like a really, we want to emphasize a section. But you would never have like clarinet and violin play in unison because that doesn't sound very good.
Right, but that's on the melody, but even for the harmony, it's like if the clarinet's playing a section and Amy's playing Secunde, then you don't, if she's going dum ba dum bum ba dum bum bum, then you don't really want the say the trumpet to play bum, with the same notes on top of that. So maybe there would be getting into the sort of next bit would be these sort of long sustained notes that you can throw in, and we'll get there very shortly. The other thing that you can do, even if the trombone or saxophone is playing, it can play the mountain goat or that middle voice line. And that actually goes pretty well. So it's different sort of textures. So let's see, we have another question from Steve. Okay, when I play 8, for 8 pieces, and my left hand change rolls. Yeah, so that's now we're getting into sort of where do all the instruments fit in, right? So that's obviously very important. The answer is yes, the left hand does change roles. So normally, actually, I'm not playing the melody very often. And normally I'm playing the chords in my right hand. This is very much specific to the piano. I'm playing chords with my right hand, and my left hand is normally doubling the bass but up an octave. So instead of, down there, it would probably be here. And sometimes I don't even play with the left hand, I just give it a rest. One other little technique that is useful on certain instruments, again, I don't quite have the technique on an accordion to pull this sort of thing off, if it even is possible, but to arpeggiate the chord if I want extra emphasis. So instead of... So if I pull it out and use a full-throated sort of 4-fingered chord, if I strike it, I could strike it staccato for some sort of jarring emphasis, or even, but I wouldn't do that every time. I would sort of, and I put the leading note in. So obviously that's for some big type of section. So again, I can't emphasize the importance of mixing it up and having a variety of different styles of whatever your instrument is. Amy will return very shortly. Our daughter has to get into an art class, but I'll take it briefly from here by myself, and she'll be back any second. So let's see. So we sort of talked about different types of rhythms, emphasizing that uncha uncha, or talking about ba ba dum ba ba dum ba ba. Now that you can even get into faster notes. So, an example of doing the 16th note. That's a very common rhythm. Dum ba dum ba da 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 dum ba ba. And you don't even have to put all those notes in. You just da 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 bum ba or ba ba bum bum ba. So it's not necessarily da 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 dum bum ba. It can be subsets of that, and you see what sounds good. Right? And again, you can change the notes, so instead of so you can throw in these sort of dotted rhythms as well. You don't want to do, that's maybe not stylistic, so so it's all got to be sympathetic with the overall rhythm, which in this piece is the Bulgar sort of rhythm. The other piece we chose is a horror rhythm, a jock, and we'll get to that fairly shortly. But the same sort of things apply. It's just a menu, if you like, or a grab bag of different rhythms. And again, it's all in service of Laurie's original question: how do you make the section sound interesting? How do you, especially if you're doing multiple repeats of the same song, how can you change up the textures? You know, everyone in the band can do it individually, but you can also do it, of course, by changing up the instruments in the band.
And like everything you just played in your right hand could be done by like a clarinet or a trumpet, da da do da, like just filling in those little blanks there.
Yep, absolutely. And in fact, in our band is frequently done, especially the trumpet is great for those repeated notes. Actually, I think it sounds better on trumpet, and of course the Secunde, it's just natural to go da 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 da.
Or like.
That's another one.
So you start on a rest. Yum. Yum. So leave that downbeat open. Yeah. Which is a great place to breathe if you need to breathe. One of those.
Like even as a drummer, when I'm playing along with a chassero and I hear those empty spaces, I'll often just tap out that rhythm on something, just to keep interest and keep the music moving. When there's like a long open space, like when someone's going da 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 da, and that's a little bit of fun.
Yeah. That's actually where it's really important that everyone in the band has to know the melody to the tunes. You know, if you think, oh, I'm playing drums or I'm playing the guitar, I don't really need to know the melody. Okay, maybe you don't need to know how to play it if it's technical and you don't play it, but you certainly need to know how to sing it, because especially you need to know where those gaps are. There's a real art in enhancing the melody without overwhelming it. I'm not any sort of chef, but to me it's sort of like adding the right amount of seasoning and not overpowering the dish, right? So, you know, when I look at this tune, there isn't a lot of gap actually.
Let's play the C part.
It's a very busy part, but the C part has some a natural thing that is on the what, 8th measure or 7th measure.
Well, there you go. It gets a little slower.
I'm thinking da 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 da. Okay, that's a nice. That is a long-ish note. It's a fast tune. You don't get a lot of them, but there is a logical place to throw in something like that. So. So there is, I'd love to hear a little fill-in of the space that somehow is not too busy. That you probably don't want to have, let's say you're playing it on a clarinet, you probably don't want to have another instrument playing exactly in the same register, so you know, some little fill there. It should be in a different register with a different feel. So a harmonic rhythmic feel or fill would sound great. I've even heard something like a band feature.
Or also just something to propel you to the next chord, because there's a chord change coming up. So if you just play the melody there. So I just played quarter notes, really, really simple, no rhythmic complexity, but I'm leading up to the G, which is the next chord.
So it's good to coordinate that sort of thing with the band, because then if the bass is going to play it, say you have a bass or a cello who's going to play that, which is the D, E, F natural, F sharp to the G. So you're taking advantage of having the 4 quarter notes of a D, but knowing that you're going to a G. So, you know, you've got all these sort of. So what am I playing on the piano there is a D, and then sort of like a, well, it's just a suspension note, but you can make it a C major if you want. I have a diminished chord here, and then the D7. So So, right, so that's another sort of feature. One general piece of advice that I have though, and I hear bands do this a lot, is, you know, they might play the thing 3 times through and do it the same every time, all these sort of little tricks every time. And I think, you know, it's actually good to sort of not do the same thing every time. If it's like, you know, imagine, I'll make it even more obvious, okay? So suppose we get to we think it's cool in the C section to go, or, you know, okay, that's a pretty bombastic version of it. That would work for me maybe in the last time through,
yeah,
but if you do it every time, you know, it would be too much somehow. All right?
Yeah, and you can work that out with your band.
Can we talk about some hot sub melodies?
Yeah. So let's not do the A part because that doesn't lend itself.
I thought of I have a nice version of the A, but we can come back to that with the C minor chords in.
Let's go back to
B section.
Or let's go back to the C.
Okay.
That's okay.
C
so
section.
if anyone's heard of Pete Sokolow, he literally has written the book on klezmer accompaniment. We've also attached it in our materials. There was something up online, so we assume he's given permission for that. Thank you, Pete. So basically, he calls it the James Bond counter melody. So when the piece goes,
so
he does. So you're going D, E flat, E flat, and it sounds kind of cheesy.
James Bond.
If you're a klezmer very traditionalist, you might be like, "What is this? This is too modern." But it's a fun thing to throw in there harmonically. So. And you've already got Twilight Zone going on in there, so why not throw in some James Bond? So that's a fun little...
So this is an example of a sub-melody that you have. Now, before we sort of say, and it's very specific to this piece, I feel. It's not that, you can sometimes find other things where that particular figure will fit.
But the point is, you're playing a longer note, not as fast as the melody. In fact, you're taking like 1-2 measures per note, and you're adding texture by making it like almost a drone underneath it, but you're changing with the chords. So I can play something that isn't James Bond.
Well, before we do it though, I just want to show, even if you take that one, if you have one instrument, which could be really anything, any instrument that is melodic at all. Sorry, Laurie, the drums are harder to do this, but you know, you basically can, as long as you can play an extended note, even on a mandolin, you can sort of do, for example, then you can obviously pull this off. However, what happens instead if you only have, say, a piano or a guitar or something like that? I can play that figure in a chord while still playing the chords, and I'll show you how. I play it with my thumb, and I play the chords with my other fingers. So or I could even play it with the top. So I'm using the sort of extra voicings. Now again, that's harder to pull off on some instruments, but it's the analog is pretty clear. So it can be a voice of a multi-phonic instrument as well. So I just wanted to point that out. I'll show you the sort of things that that can do in the B section, for example. If I'm playing the B section, say I think of da ba da 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 da. So here's a little melody. So from the previous one, in other words, each note is 1/4 beat. But what can I do then? I can, if I like that melody, I can actually play it. I think of it as a sub-melody. It's not a very interesting melody by itself, but it kind of sounds like an alto line in a choir or something like that. And I can play that. I'm changing inversions every note there. It's pretty busy, but I'm doing it so I can highlight that. Right, so the other one I was going to show you from the A section, if we're going to do that with the C minor chords now that we have. So I think of this melody. And then I'm using that in the thumb, right? Right. So, or if you're going to stay on the D the whole way through, then you can do something like the James Bond, but you know, if you're so if I think of even something like that. Right, so I'm sort of encouraging you to think of nice sub-rhythms or sub-melodies where they're not as fast as the main melody, they don't move around as much, but they could be played on one instrument, or they could be played within a multiphonic instrument there. Do you want to show some, sorry, I've done all the talking about.
Oh sure, I was just thinking that, like what we said at the very beginning, to be familiar with your scales. So first of all, ascertain what mode your piece is in. So if it's Phragish, really run up and down your Phragish scale, so you're playing the note that fits, and then ascertain what chord you're in, especially if you're in a big ensemble. You want to make sure your bassist is on the same chord as your harmony folks. Because some pieces, you know, traditional pieces, there might be several versions of it, and one person might have this sheet music, the other one might say a non-fitting chord.
You definitely want to be in sync with the band, absolutely. So, do you want to show any other examples of sub-melodies? Or are there any? I haven't looked at the chat for a little while. I mean, is it sort of clear? Oh, someone thought I said hot tub melodies. Right. Oh yes. No, it's not hot tub. It is unfortunately sub-melody is just my term for some sort of alto line that goes underneath that is longer. And by the way, if you are arranging a tune for the band, you can do these lovely melodies with two instruments in harmony, as it were, these lovely sub-melodies. So if I wanted to take that sort of, for example, if I had, so I could maybe do it like this. Right, so in other words, I'd actually, in that case, probably arrange it. I would write it out as a melody. In fact, we did this for one of our tunes called Dave's Freilach, and we did it in three parts. So because we have the four horns, as Amy mentioned, the clarinet was saying, was playing the melody, and the other three, the violin, the trumpet, and the alto sax, were playing chords. So the melody in that one was. Okay, so I only want to play that
So don't be afraid to use, like, if you're a treble instrument, your lower range, as long as you can be amplified. I know it's harder to hear like mandolin, flute, and stuff, but try to get a sound setup that works for you, so you don't have to push.
All right, so yeah, so the sub melodies. Look, this is not so easy to do. This is something.
It's like in that. Sorry, could I give?
Yeah, go ahead.
Divergent thinking, but there's this thing going around about Mariah Carey's "All I Want for Christmas Is You," this alto, who's just singing right? So, but that might be your part for a klezmer tune, and it's okay to just play if it makes the melody, if it makes the chords come out in a more interesting way. You might just pick one note in the chord and stick on it, like, I don't know, if you're in an A7 chord, just play like that part. So you might just play right as a passing tone or something. But so
I mean, don't be afraid to just, you know, augment the music with some longer tones, but to practice it is not so easy. So what I recommend for that is try playing along with the recording and just play, play melodies like that, just long melodies underneath, sub melodies as I've been calling them, which go with the song. And
or you could have just isolate, maybe have a person in the band isolate, just play the melody, and then have folks experiment with sub melodies with that. So you're not listening to like a big band recording of it.
Yeah, I mean, it's got to sound.
Or just have like just the bass and just the top line, and then you could figure out.
Does anybody want to try that right now? Where you guys play the melody and we just mute ourselves and.
Or Adrian and I can play it, and everyone can try it along with us. Is that
yeah.
Okay.
Maybe the B section of this is the easiest there, or we could do the A section. What do you want to do? The A section with or without the chord change?
I say we give everyone the benefit of the doubt, and we just go through the entire chart.
The entire
Maybe
chart.
We'll play it slower. We'll play
it
a little slower. How about this? While we go through the chart, we can't hear you, so you can do whatever you want, but why don't you try doing both sort of techniques at different times? So one technique is to play bum 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 bum, something rhythmic, it could be simple rhythmic, or you can try some of the bum ba da ba ba da 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 ba ba da da ba. So try mixing up the rhythms, and try if you have a multiphonic instrument, try different inversions. And then at different times, as you're playing it down, try to play long notes and see if you can fit. It's not really a beautiful melody you're doing. You're just trying to make something that doesn't move around too much, doesn't detract from the main melody, but really just enhances it. So mix it up, have fun with it. We'll play each section twice. For the A section, we'll keep just the D. We won't throw all those C minor chords, which makes it a little harder, except for the last one. And then, just try to get different textures all the way through. Any questions before we begin? Type it in the chat, or... All right, we'll give it a go.
And then we can unmute after and see if someone came up with something cool that they want to share or ask about. How about that?
Wait, we're not doing shares. Oh, wait, different sort of share.
So a little slower.
guys would really spice it up, as it were. Did anyone want to share something that you just played that you can remember that you thought, wow, yeah, that really fit well?
Yeah, we don't even believe that any of you can play, so let's.
I didn't play anything, and I won't play it. But I heard what you said about playing one note, staying with the rhythm, and enhancing it. And I just couldn't keep up, so I just went to that, and it fit very nicely. And then I changed octaves. It was really interesting, and it sounded right.
You could even just play like the third step while I'm going.
That's what I did.
That's what you did. See? It works.
I actually was trying to keep it simple on my end so that I wouldn't.
That's all I could handle.
I was trying to keep it simple, and I couldn't help myself. I realized that afterwards I could not help myself from going up an octave when Amy did as well. So at the last chorus, when she went up an octave, well, maybe, yeah, where was it? She went up the octave, and I found myself playing up here, whereas before I was playing down there. So did anyone else want to share anything?
Should I volunteer someone?
You don't have to. We actually can go on to the horror as well, because we've only got about 20 minutes left.
Yeah.
We can go on to the second tune.
Yeah, so there are a few different techniques.
So I was gonna volunteer Beth. No.
So if we can go back to the horror, which is the Noch a Gläsel Wein. First of all, well, maybe we'll play it first. But I was curious to know who knows this tune or has ever heard it before.
Yeah, so this is a slow horror or Jacques. Yum.
So feel free to play it along with us, and you'll see that actually a lot of the techniques are similar. So if you don't play along, then by all means listen to what we're going to do. Maybe I'll take the second chorus on every repeat, so that you can do some accompaniment, and we'll show you some of the. I mean, you'll hear all the same techniques, right? We're going to play it rhythmically. We're going to change inversions. We're going to do some arpeggiation, and we'll also do some long notes as well. All right, so sub melodies or longer sustained notes. Okay,
and especially with this song, the rhythm, you want to lead into beat one, dun 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 da. Yeah, maybe not every measure, but like every other phrase.
All right.
Which chart? There's no B flat chart here. Which one am I gonna?
In our Toronto Klez 21 folder, it says Noch a Gläsel Wein. It says G minor and then _ B flat.
I don't have that. No. I have bass, E flat, and concert.
Maybe hit refresh. It should be in there.
Can you just click on it and see if it's there? We can see it. That's weird.
I'll send it to him. Don't worry. Just carry on.
Okay. Let's just pull up the.
Mal, I'll send you a copy. No problem.
Thanks. I'll just play in concert muted.
Okay.
It'll only sound dissonant to me.
Okay. So I'll is a little busier than we would normally even do on the first run through the piece. All right, so
trying to give lots of examples.
Exactly, we were giving some more examples.
Let's play the scale that we're in first of all.
Absolutely. So this is the Mishbera.
So big important thing is that
a sharp fourth, basically. So it's a minor scale with a sharp fourth.
a lot of doinas are in that mode as well.
So this piece allows us to show sort of the other main klezmer mode. There are a few others, but a lot of them are well, essentially major or minor, or in one case, well, let's not get too bogged down here, but a lot of klezmer tunes are in the Freygish, which is the first mode that we did in our desk, and the Mishabera, which is this one. So we can see it doesn't change that much in a sense, except that you're really in minor rather than major. From the arpeggio point of view, instead of the major that we were in from in the other tune. But then, of course, this also shows the different rhythms. So obviously not going button. In fact, the chart is gone. It's replaced by the basic rhythm, which is the 1 and the 3. So there's just this pulse. Now, some people think of it as more like it's in 5. So we could not spend we're not going to spend the next 15 minutes talking about what time signature a Jacques is really in. I'll leave that for Laurie if she wants to some other time. But it's an interesting rhythm. It really deserves quite a lot of study. It deserves more time than we're going to spend on it. But just, so I acknowledge that this is an oversimplification in a way. But I like to, if I think of it as 1 and 3, I kind of put more emphasis on the 3 than the 1, or at least maybe not emphasis. The 3 is a little longer than the 1.
The 1 is never long.
It's sort of.
So you never go. That's just not. Doesn't sound like
a Jacques.
The right klezmer feels it.
All right. So there's already a different rhythm though. So the basic one is bum, bum, bum. But then what Amy just did. So that's another way you can mix it up. So I really love the clean feel of the. And then maybe on the next section. So that's another way. If it's a long chord, then you can sort of build it up by putting that extra little things in it, right? So, and it's actually acceptable from time to time to fill in the 2. Most of them, you've got that gap after the 1, but sometimes, you can go. Again, that's sort of to mix it up a little bit. You can actually put the 2 in, but don't do it too much. You can over season that. But
also leading into the 1, like if you're pretty much everyone here, with the exception of maybe the plucked strings, can do a sustain. So don't always do short, but.
So when you get to the B section, what I might have done one of those times is, because you've got the A section, it was so sort of, the melody is itself an arpeggio actually. Dum, ba-da-da-dum, ba-da-da-da. It's a very busy melody. I feel like the A section is like, ba-da-da-da-da-da-da. It's a very disjointed, jumpy melody, and it deserves a sort of an accompaniment that is similar. So I felt, bum, bum, bum. That's great. But when you get to the B section, not only does it change to the 4 chord, the C minor, but there's a very different feel to the melody, right? It's a beautiful piece, and it's very well constructed as well, because you've got that, becomes like a almost more like a lullaby. So it somehow feels like, you know, end of the. So I was making it a little longer on the one there, and sort of somewhat anti-stylistically almost think of it as a. You don't want to think of it as a waltz, but you know, but it still sort of almost feels like. So I kind of feel like that for variety, but maybe I wouldn't do it every time. So like, you know. Back to the horror. So there's a little bit where you can mix it up with another sort of three.
Or piano keeps, or someone keeps going with the yum, da, dum, and then someone else brings in that sustained.
So that gets to the sustained thing, and we were doing that. Can we just do I'll play the melody, and you were playing that nice line. So yeah, I think you were E flat.
Pick a note. Yeah.
Pick a note, but yeah. So that's 2 measure long notes. So I'll do a 1 measure note version if you play the melody now. So I just was playing a sub melody there with each note as one. So obviously, if you're playing a melodic instrument and you go into harmony mode, you could play that. If I was just accompanying Amy by myself, I could go. So let's see. Let's do that right. So the technique, can I just play for 1 second? The technique on the piano is, see, I'm playing with my 3rd finger actually, the top note, and then. Right, so again, different techniques on different instruments, or if you're arranging for the band, but the same sort of principles apply. And by the way, let us not forget, there are fills, since we're down to the last few minutes, forgot about this. There are fills you can put in, which are considered sort of semi-harmonic. So the most common one in, say, a Bulgar is some sort of descending scale. So, or in the Frege version. In the horror, a common fill is ba 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 at the end. Or if you want to get fancy, you can change the rhythm there.
And note that in the number of measures in the A section, it's not even, so it adds. There's a little tag at the A section, which sometimes you might omit if you're doing like a choreographed dance or something. This version has extra measures in it, but it doesn't have to be law to have those in there. So it's done. Can we just play the A without that?
Yeah,
Just
sure.
play it like
straight,
as it were.
Though, right?
Yeah.
So what do you want to? Which measures are we missing?
Well, if this song is new to anyone, just make it like.
But which can we just say?
Well, they're not numbered.
They're not numbered.
So let's see. Da, 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 da. There's 4 measures. The final 4 measures before the repeat on the A.
we're going to just play essentially the first two lines of the A.
And then add.
Okay, so. Alright, so that's a different version if you want to make it a little bit shorter.
I had a question about amplifying quiet instruments. So mandolin, I use like a, what is it called? I think it's an Audio Technica. It's been so long since we've had to play on stage, but it clips. I clip it onto the. I have one of these thingies, and then it's like a clip-on mic. Mandolin's really hard not to get feedback when you turn up the levels. So yeah, it's a delicate balance with that. But for violin, I also did buy a Yamaha, one of those plug-in silent violins that you can really crank it up. It's not the same as playing with a real microphone, but
This is actually an electric violin, right?
But yeah, some mandolins you can drill in an actual pickup in there if you want to do that. But definitely something close to you rather than like an external mic that you're trying to play close enough to.
So we're coming right up to the end of the time, and we just tried to share a few tricks, techniques, ideas.
Do you want to play through the horror with everyone?
Yeah, maybe we finish with that, or Laurie, I don't know if you want to.
I did want to do a couple of housekeeping things. Thing one, we didn't really get a chance to meet everybody properly, like we would say Klez Canada or whatever. But if you want us to check out a project you're working on, or your hip klezmer band, or whatever band, your death metal band, just throw it into the chat. What's so funny, Rachel? Throw it into the chat and let's check each other's work out. That would be a lot of fun for me, for sure, and hopefully for you too. We have 4 minutes. I want to thank Amy and Adrian. This was really terrific. I learned a lot. I'm playing ukulele and I learned a lot. So that's great. And our next workshop is at the end of February, date to be confirmed, but it's going to feature Frank London, who's going to be running the workshop. And he's pretty much synonymous with the word klezmer for me, as far as I'm concerned. And I just want to leave it open to anybody who has anything else they'd like to say. If you want to join us and hear more about our workshops and programs, we're at TorontoKlezmerSociety.com. You can get a mail out from us. And we are also on Facebook under Toronto Klezmer Society.
Well, we'd like to thank Laurie for organizing this and for having us. And we'd also like to thank everyone for attending.
Yes, and thanks everyone who came.
And we,
this was super tremendous, and I think it reinforced for me how important accompaniment and harmony is. It's super important.
It's actually kind of a selfish endeavor, I'll be honest. I got really sick of hearing everybody play the melody at the jam. So I really, really wanted to get more going on.
It's not glamorous, but man,
it was really just about me.
We've spent some time compiling a bunch of resources in that Google Drive, and please do explore them. There's a bunch of audio to listen to. There's sheet music exercises and really good klezmer nerdy stuff that you can.
I meant it. Put your band in the chat. I'm waiting.
I don't know about death metal, but if anyone wants to reach us afterwards, we have some contact details in there, and we'd be very happy to listen to your stuff or to look at it if it's written, and give you our tips or thoughts, about what you could do to mix it up a little bit more or whatever, right? So it's all. Everything, by the way, is completely subjective in this whole thing, right? Some people think some things sound good, others. All we do is just sort of give our general thoughts there. But yeah, I can't say it enough. Just try it out, experiment. If it sounds good, just do it more. If it doesn't sound good, well, make it sound good, or just even go with it. It will sound good to someone, right? So that's really important.